Okay, Linda, take it away.
Okay, thank you. So, according to the instruction log, again, I want to emphasize it's really important that we really read and even highlight some of the parts with our script. I printed out, I highlight parts which I feel are key issues or key triggers that I really want to impart on that slide. Some of the slides in part 3 do get a little detailed with the script. So I think because of time, we cannot give all of those details, but we have that in our pocket for answering questions and to integrate into it. So beginning, also I wanted to let you know, how did I come up with these numbers, these pages? When I took my Patterson, the international school, and then Lincoln, a more higher functioning class, and then my regular class is here, and I wrote down how far I got with each lesson with 3 totally different schools. And I took basically the one that progressed the quickest, but it wasn't keeping up with the previous standard. So we finished with part 2 in lesson 5. As Richard said, we really have to gauge ourselves from lesson 1, I would say at least from lesson 2, to be able to finish appropriately, because everything's really important.
Actually, can I just comment? I just want to repeat what she just said. I really don't want you to be speaking about the part 2 in lesson 6. I mean, unless you're just finishing up one or two slides.
Right.
By lesson number 6, you have to be doing the part 3. Okay, because part 3 has the content, which is the discussion of ethics, discussion of morality, which I believe has a deeper motivation for them to save sex. So the part 2 is a necessary content because they need to know the consequences, and it also creates credibility for what we're saying. But if you're still talking about part 6, about part 2 in the 6th lesson, in my view, you're making a huge mistake. Okay, so do you all understand that?
Yes.
Yeah, you need to.
Well, why would you be using something of content of part 2 in part 3?
No, you don't understand what I said. I'm saying if you're still teaching part 2 in lesson number 6, then you're making a huge mistake because you're not going to have enough time to cover all the content of part 3.
You mean you need to cover in 5 lessons all of part 2?
That's right. Okay. And if you need to just move quickly through some of the content in part 2, that's okay. All right, because the uniqueness of our program is discussion of ethics, which is all of that is in part 3. And of course the emotional consequences as well. That's something that they have not heard from their teacher probably. Okay, so do you all agree? I hope you agree.
I know you don't have any problem with George. He'd rather just teach part 3 the whole time.
Right. Okay. All right, you gotta keep on going, Linda, all right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I always loved part 2. It was always my favorite, shock and awe, And plus it's lifelong consequences. You have HPV or any of these things. But the part 3 is the one they write the most evaluations on. When they give me their input, what they liked and didn't like, it's part 3 stuff, So I totally agree with you. It hits that deeper nation. It hits more the emotions and feelings,
Right.
So I agree. So,
yeah, so I mean, let me just say one more thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, the part 2 content uh, it may work on them in the short-term sense. They say, yuck, I don't want those diseases, right? But because, as we all know, their deeper motivation is they're seeking love, right? And
Yeah.
so in part 3, we offer them a new definition of what it means to love somebody. So it really is the core content of our curriculum. So anyway, I just want to make it clear that you want to leave enough time to cover the content in part 3, which starts in lesson 6. Okay, take it away, Linda.
So these are my suggestions. Okay, you may adapt differently. Karina at War, I love it. You know, especially that she was so brave to make this video. For time, though, I'm thinking to capture their attention. I want to play Karina at War as the students are arriving, sitting down, teachers taking attendance, and all this stuff. It's a 4-minute video, and then I can have a 2-minute discussion on it. But that's going to save time. We want to do slides 1 through 14 for part 3, and that's going to include the Teen Mom video. Now, with the homework page.
Okay, hold on. Let me scroll down. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
With the Teen Mom. With the Teen Mom video, it's about 8 minutes, according to that. And I think it's important to read the kind of like the intro. In the video you watched, Dr. Phil tries to help Tanya Don see the reality of the situation she created. Tanya Don is a 17-year-old teen mom who disappears for 2 to 3 days at a time, skips school, leaving her 9-week-old son to be taken care of her mother and aunt without any notice. They need to know that the mother and aunt are totally taking care of this child financially, everything, because they may feel sorry, well, yeah, she needs to have fun. She's still a teenager, you know, but they don't realize you had a baby, you know, good for you. And the baby's not even 9 months, it's 9 weeks. It's a frail, vulnerable infant. So then I would read the questions to stimulate them. What advice would give, all the questions. And then, because I've already handed out the homework page, and I'll tell them these questions, just answer down here. Very, you know, and you can use the back. They have the name of the school, and I says, you will be graded on this. You know, I can talk to the teacher ahead of time. Some of mine say they get 5 extra points or something, which is huge. And whatever it is that she decides to do. And all the teachers I have, I was surprised. They're like they're homework animals. They actually will subtract. If my students do not take 3 notes, if they do not do the homework, that teacher is going to give them a 0 for the day. So it's very interesting. It's not something I suggested, but they really value our program. So with part 3, I suggest that you use the script intro for Tanya Don's video. And after the video, ask the 5 questions so they're familiar with them and say, this is homework due in 2 days or whatever. It has to be soon, because like if you say next Tuesday when we meet again, that's going to be a problem because they're going to totally forget. They're going to lose it and stuff like that. So then 1 through 14. So do you want to, what slide number is
Okay,
she?
hold on. Yeah, so this is, okay, so the first lesson is supposed to, the model is through slide 13, which is the second I love you slide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, all right, and then, oh, I'm sorry, you have slide number 14, one more slide, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, okay, so there's a Karina at War. And again, if you're running out of time, you can assign this as homework and they can bring it back the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And so there's also some things to bring out with the Karina at War. So you could either do it as they walk in, or for part, you know, for the lesson 7, you know, you could do it for them, because then it's kind of more along with the script. And there's just, I do like to point out lyrics that she gives a little bit, you know, what what was this about? What is it saying? And it does really capture them. And then so when we get into lesson 7, it's slides 15 to 29. And the first one is a discussion, how the words you speak represent who you are. And, you know, what kind of person are you if you tell lies? You know, do I tell the truth? How many of you want to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't tell the truth? Maybe they don't want to hurt your feelings, or they don't want you to break up with them or get angry, you know? So it's interesting. I don't know how familiar you are with Cardi B. You know, I think the girl has a really nice heart. She's a rapper. Her videos are like porn shows. And then she's very popular for her WAP video, WAP. You can look up what that means yourself. And well, her WAP may not be that interesting to her husband, because her husband cheated on her. Here she has all the body parts that people in today's culture, and her husband cheated on her. And she's so wealthy. She's got money, good looks, and her WAP couldn't keep him happy. So it's kind of interesting. So I think one thing I didn't do last year, which may have affected my results, I didn't play my music. I was really trying to beat the clock. And I used to listen to hip hop stations all the time just to keep on top of the trends, but they became so political, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So whatever I can find off the beaten trail, I try to incorporate those things. So then we have 6, yes?
What does WAP stand for? What does that mean?
I'll text it to you.
Is it the female body part?
Yes, mm-hmm.
Okay, it's okay to say. We're all adults. Got it. Thank
Well,
you.
it's this being recorded, so.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
Okay.
this is, I mean, some people don't know what you're talking about. I think it's better for you to just, we're not showing this widely, so.
Okay, it's wet ass P word.
Right.
What's W?
Wet. So her wet
Right.
Wow.
I got it.
P word.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
That's
And then
the
you should
title
see her-
of her song?
Yeah.
Her video is all, that's her whole thing, WAP. It's such a key phrase now. You know, give me some of that WAP, you know?
Wow. I would have no
Husband,
idea.
and there's always a better WAP down the street, you know? So if that's what your relationship is, and look at her, she's beautiful. And again, I think even though she's, you know, she's very gangster and all that, but I think she has a really nice heart. It's just she's very misguided. Maybe she was sexually abused when she's younger. This is how she gets attention. But her video is just, you can always YouTube it. Cardi, C-A-R-D-I, Cardi B. And
Yeah, she
She's even
performed on
doing-
Saturday Night Live this past
Yeah.
weekend. and
She did an interview with Joe Biden.
yes,
Oh, that was crazy.
she's a political advisor now. Yes.
Yeah, so
And then,
I'd just like to make a comment that, you know, I think that look, to me, this shows that the culture's focus on physical attraction and, you know, body parts, and the fact that this doesn't keep people faithful to each other. To me, it just is one more example that why what we're talking about, the ethics of love and discussion of what does it really mean to love somebody,
Mhm.
is way, way more important than, you know, your body parts, right? So, you know, I think that we should, thank you for explaining about this. I think all of our educators need to know about
it's important.
this video, and it just, and just remember, if anyone starts arguing with you, you should be thanking God. You should be thanking that now you have someone to respond to. You know, you're waking, that person's waking
Yeah.
everybody up,
Mhm.
and they're going to pay attention to what, you know, what you say.
Yeah. And even as out there, and in her video, she seems promiscuous, but she's being faithful to her vows. It never occurred to her husband is going to cheat on her. She has everything a man would ever want. But guess what? That's not what's most important, you know? And if it is, maybe that's the wrong person that you picked. So it,
Yeah,
it goes both
my
ways.
daughter and I watched her perform on Saturday Night Live this last night. My daughter's 18, and my daughter is saying she really likes Cardi B. My
Mhm.
daughter's really clear on the ethics of our family, but she also, there's something about Cardi B that's very appealing to teens, like her
Yeah.
courage, so to speak, her outspokenness, all that stuff. But good to know. Thank you.
It's really
I would-
easy to be outspoken when you have the media supporting you, you have money, you know, you have all your looks and stuff like that. But it's sad because I'm sure she's not very happy right now. And the thing is, she's being a role model. Children who are not as mature as your daughter, they think that is what I want to be. And if I don't have a big butt and big boobs, I'm undesirable. And the girl might only be 10 or 11 years old. You know, same with the boys. If I don't have big muscles, a six pack, so I don't want to digress, but it's exactly what Richard is saying is this is temporary, you know. So
Yeah,
the
I mean-
next one would be 16 about the players. That's a new slide. And I think it's really good for people to understand how many of you know about somebody, they seem like they're really into somebody, then they get them, and then they just move on to the next target. I really think, Richard, this slide is going to say, you know, because people have the emotions, but they really understand from a psychological point of view what happened and how to avoid it in the future. Because the player makes you feel good. You know, they're going to love me. I'm different, you
Right.
know? So that's the stimulation that the player gets. It's not from the relationship. It's from the conquest. It's from the chase. It's not from anything else.
And one more comment. I just want to mention that
Mhm.
this slide it's kind of like it's like a bullet point slide. And it's you don't necessarily need to have a big discussion. I
Right.
think, you know,
Mhm.
it's meant to express a certain point, and then you can move on.
Exactly. That's what I felt too. That what I had said is the most that I would say on that slide, and you know, it speaks for itself. So 17 is the next one. Some guys think, some teens think that if a guy buys a meal for a date, she's obligated to give sex to him. In the 90s, actually, they did do a survey with teenagers, and even females thought that, yes, if the guy pays for the date, I think it's 3 months, she owes him sex. So is that correct and honorable and whatever? So it's amazing how many guys would disagree, that they would say that's not a good thing. You know, when we allow them to speak about that, it's amazing. So then 18, so it's important that he doesn't demand a sexual payment for his actions. Then 18, and even you can always ask a question. Somebody takes you out, you know, that's why I think Dutch treat is the best. You know, it's nice for females to think, oh, they're taking me out, but it's better to go Dutch treat. 18 is the, I'm sorry, 18 is the next one. Studies show sexually active girls. So I think, again, this doesn't take a lot of dialogue. More depressed, 3 times more depressed than the sexually active high schools girls are three times more depressed. And they may not relate it to the sexual activity. That's what I think is so important with this. And so then the next one is
By the way, I just wanted one more comment.
Mhm.
The research also shows that they're 3 times more likely to attempt suicide.
Yeah.
But it's not something that we want to say in the classroom usually, because
we don't want to trigger something.
we don't want to trigger somebody. But at least in your mind, we should know it, that you know. I mean, I just want you, in the back of your mind, you should be
Yeah.
aware of that. Yes.
Well, they do speak about suicide in schools now. They're giving classes why they shouldn't. So the only thing I could see if somebody said something would be some, you know, overdose on drugs. They do things to hurt themselves. Does that solve their problem,
Yeah.
you know, or make it worse? So I would say it indirectly like that.
Yeah, you could say, you know, they're also more, you know, verbally you could say, you know, they're more likely to hurt them, try to hurt
High
themselves.
risk behaviors. Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
And then 19, that's the next one. 11 times the girls who are having multiple sex partners, 11 times more depressed. And I had never seen this before, but I mean, I had never said this before. What do you think if the girls got counseling instead of more sex partners? Do you think they would have had a better chance of overcoming? These are real feelings. Depression are real feelings. We have to always validate these are real feelings.
Yeah.
It doesn't, there's ways to avoid them, or at least not make them worse.
Yeah, look, the reality is that these girls who are having all these partners, they're probably acting out from maybe previous trauma, of various kinds. They may have been abused, all kinds of things. And again, as Linda's saying, what if they got counseling instead of more partners, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the schools like it that I'm always referring the students to their guidance counselors. I said they have confidentiality clauses. If you're trying to commit suicide, they'll get you help, but anything that you can say, can you keep this? Or even go to the guidance counselor, say, I have a friend who's going through this. I can help them. That way you need to have an adult, a mature adult that you could count on, so they seem to appreciate that. So then the next one on number 20 is about guys who are having sex and drinking alcohol. They're 3 times more likely to be depressed. It's kind of a cycle. You might feel a little down. I want to fit in, so I'm having sex and drinking. Did that solve their problems? After they're not high anymore, they get over the hangover. Did it
Linda,
really?
On this slide, do you invite questions from the kids, like ask them, like, why do you think that is? Why is this guy so depressed? Do you often do that? Or, I mean, because I know
Why do you think he might be
depressed?
depressed?
Right, I know we're always tight for time, and there's some points we just want to make and move on. But
Well,
this-
honestly, those discussions are important, and I would ask a question. Why do you think, guys, we only think of girls as being depressed? Why is it that the guys who are having sex and doing alcohol, you'd think, oh, I'm the cool guy, I'm fitting in. Why do they tend to be more depressed? So yeah, usually I'm always asking them, why do they think this? I never ask these themselves, have you ever had sex? You might have had sex. I says, how many of you have friends who had sex and thought this is a great relationship and they're not together anymore? I might do it like that. I don't want to know them directly. That way they could say it inside. It was me, but I don't ask them.
Anyway, I don't mind if you ask a question, but be careful about getting into a big, long discussion, right?
Right. We'll be careful of that. Yeah. It's just, it's more to get a frame when they see, wow, other guys are depressed too. What guys talk about depression? Zero,
Right.
They get high or get angry and get in fights, So if they know that other people get depressed, this is not an answer, then it, especially when you do like Joe said, like if you ask how many of you know guys in school that get depressed or whatever, it might come out as an anger, whatever.
Well, I mean, guys tend to hide what, they don't want to appear weak. So they
Like
don't.
the bullies, they're depressed.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they don't show their feelings, right?
So that brings us to slide 21. And so again, it says, anyone here who felt used or guilty after having sex? I would say anyone here know anyone who felt used, guilty, or regretful after having sex. And see, they may not, because the people they didn't connect it, oh, we're always fighting now. Oh, we're not getting along. So research indicates that half of I think when we say the word half instead of 1 out of every 2, half of sexually active teens reported feeling used, guilty, or regretful, even if it was oral sex or intercourse. And female teens were 3 times more likely. And even ask them, why do they think that? And if they don't raise their hand, I would say, why don't you put your answer in your notes? Why do you feel they felt these things?
Right.
So number 22, the next one,
But
teen
guys
sex.
that one's saying girls were 3 times more likely than guys, right? to
Yes.
feel-
hmm
Yeah. Okay.
So, but it's good to know that teens in general, it was half of them, but female teens, they were 3 times more likely to say they felt used because they didn't get the relationship. And then people talk, you're a hoe, you're this, you're that. We got so many names. Boys, he's the pimp, he's the man. He's depressed too. So what I do is I say, oftentimes there's a really great relationship. 2 teens really love each other. It's a real relationship, but sex becomes the stake that drives those 2 people apart. Now there's the cheating, arguing, insecurities, because it's not what they really expected, And so with 22, with teen sex, it's not just about AIDS and STDs or pregnancy. Sometimes somebody might be acting out others more serious, very serious issues, and then you go through the tip of the iceberg. Sometimes we see the tip of the iceberg, but we don't see that huge, like in the movie Titanic, right? The huge iceberg underneath that causes destruction. And these are real problems. Does sex solve any of these problems? No. And how many of you think if you have low self-esteem, poor relationships, lack of vision, a goal, having sex may make those things worse? When you look at STDs, emotional trauma, jeopardizing the relationship, so it's interesting.
So that's powerful stuff. Just where did we get this from? Is this Dr. Lacona or is it somewhere else?
No. I mean, it's just I forget. I mean, I do a lot of like reading of different articles and so on. I don't even remember exactly.
I call this common knowledge.
Yeah.
A lot of studies have showed this. Teen sex, it isn't just about being horny, having my needs met. They're actually acting out. Other girls who go around giving random oral sex to everybody, they've been sexually abused when they're younger. You see all these girls acting sexual. Cardi B, I'll bet you anything, she was sexually abused as a young girl. There's boys sexually abused. So I've heard of boys having sex because they're angry, about being sexually abused by an older relative or something.
Right.
So I don't find I get challenged on this. I really find students relate to it. And it's almost like they have all these feelings, emotions, and they see all these things, but they're not bringing it together. What is the cause? We talk about the cause of a lot of these things. That's why it's so well received by adults primarily, unless they're free sex advocates. So 23, the next one, the emotional, I ask students, what's the benefits of having sex as a teenager? Very rarely will anybody say anything except the word nothing. They'll sit there very quiet, no hands up. I'll have 6th graders. I've had 3 so far in all these years that said, so I know what to do on my wedding night. So I don't know what adult he was talking to.
How do you pose the question, Linda? What exactly do you say?
What's the benefits, like what's good benefits of having sex as a teenager? And I don't say committed, uncommitted, married, or whatever. Usually people are not married when they're teenagers. What's the benefits? And usually, especially the older they are, the quieter the room and the more depressed they look. 11th and 12th graders will always say the word nothing out loud.
They never say it feels good?
I've had 2 so far.
2?
Thousands.
Out of thousands?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, only twice I've had somebody say it feels good, and everybody laughed at him. It was a guy, 2 different times, and the other students laughed, which was a very good sign, And well, the first time you shoot up heroin, you know, you pop up there and you stick the needle in there. I lived with 2 heroin addicts who had recovered. They were living with a woman who adopted them. These are, you know, they're in their 30s, you know, but they were heroin addicts who totally got cleaned up. They were married, a male and a female, and they started to relapse. And they were talking about heroin like it was the greatest love of their life. I saw them, it almost looked like they had shot heroin in their arms before me. They acted, and even they said throwing up was just such a rush. I almost wanted to try heroin. I was 25. There was only one reason I didn't try heroin, and they would have given it to me for free. I thought, why get addicted to something that I'm not going to be able to get rid of, you know? And something told me I could get addicted to it, which you can. One hit, you can become addicted. So that feels good. So these kind of things. So the just do it, you know, if it feels good, do it is kind of a old-fashioned way of thinking. So there are emotional benefits. We don't want to base our fears just on what we fear, you know, but everybody without exception wants to be happy. Well, these are the things. So I go through each one of these one after one. And I says, I know people who hate the person they were with that they gave their heart to because they really feel betrayed. I'm sure Cardi B is in shock, you know, and, you know, self-respect, clear conscience, you know, nowadays too, because of all the STDs, when you find that right one and you don't have any STDs, how wonderful. But what if you have herpes or HPV? Are you going to be able to experience free sex with that person the rest of your lives together? It's something that's a reality to think about, you know. So trust, when we train our brain to think with this instead of this, we're actually training ourselves to be faithful in a relationship, because it's easy to say no to another person. I always found it was difficult to say no to myself. If I can say no to myself, I'm good, you know. So having more trust in relationships, you know, they didn't cheat and stuff like this. Relationships are not ruined. And I've seen plenty of relationships that I thought, this is wonderful, and it got ruined. Focus on you. This is a time that will never come again when you can actually focus on you. It's okay to be self-centered. Focus on your growth, your goals, finding out who you are as an individual. You know, like right now, there's all the GTLBT and all this stuff. I says, but who are you as a person? You want to have a healthy relationship in the future. Who are you as a person? That's something to think about. And before they're thinking like, what does that even mean? You know, me as a person, because it's always in relationship to how people view me. You want to feel your value? Give value to other people, you know, so that's how I deal with that. Did you want to add something, Richard?
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's good.
And so I don't really get that long. I go boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
2 maybe short stories. That's it. I don't really talk about the heroin addicts, but that was my experience. Then 24 is the 5-star sexuality. So this is where we get into a lot of words too. So it's good to keep it down to bullet points, but be aware of the script to guide you. And, you know, imagine, you know, somebody says they like you, but they show no interest in what you think. Would you really be happy? You know? So how about your ideas, opinions, and dreams? You know, do they share the same feelings and heart? You know? And I even say to a guy, how about if you really like somebody, they like you, but they say, I love your opinions, you know, I love your opinions and dreams. You know, that's with the I love you script, but it can be with this too. How do you feel? And the guys, they just love it, you know. I do have the real story about Coco and Laurel, which is amazing. Sometimes I tell it, sometimes I don't. And they obviously figured out how to have sex after marriage, because I think they have 2 or 3 kids now. They seem very happy to me.
Yeah, I think since we're showing their photos in the succession of slides, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to introduce them. This is showing this couple when they were dating, and they're both into music and so on, but they decided, you know, to not be intimate with each other and just to focus on getting to know each other, right?
Because I saw them in a car in front of my house. I forget why. I know one time I was working a little with Coco, and so I know the background story, how they actually met. And so I was wondering, I wonder what's going on. And he told me that they made an agreement just with each other that they would not do any mouth kissing. They would kiss hands and they would kiss cheek, but they wouldn't kiss anything else. And there was no touching, even through the clothes with body parts.
Mm.
So good for them. I mean, they're older. They weren't teenagers. I think they're 20, 21, something like that.
Right.
They're both into music. And she was a lifeguard, just briefly. They were a lifeguard. He was sitting there, and they actually had a conversation. He didn't really know her at the summer camp. And he told his mom, he says, oh, man, I really got to clean up my act. If I could ever meet a girl like Laurel and have as my wife, I would be the happiest man on this earth, which he didn't think was any possibility. She was so amazing. Well, apparently she thought the same thing of him. And so the two parents talked and invited their family over from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. And history was made. It's very interesting. But so it really does show the benefits of waiting. You really feel when you see them as a couple, they really have a nice bond. My daughter Umi too, her and her husband, like, they don't have such an easy life. They sit there watching TV. I think they're married 8 years now. They hold hands watching TV. Like, who does that? They kiss each other on they say a prayer for their dinner, and then they kiss each other on the lips. This, and so the kids are seeing this. They love it. That their parents saved their love. Bill became a secondary virgin. We met Umi. I didn't know she was still virgin. She was 25. She told me, I go, wow, that's amazing. After they're adults, what can I do? And that was her decision. And it was wonderful. It's wonderful. So anyway, so social joining, you're actually joining each other's family and circle of friends. Well, what if you just get pregnant by somebody and they can't stand you, or you can't stand them. So when you are thinking about being with somebody, you really need to look at the whole picture, their family, their history. When you're having sex, that becomes the focus of your relationship. Whereas when you're abstaining, you're saving it, you're actually really getting to know that person. Table topics, conversations, asking each other things. So it's you join another person's family. And Naomi, my baby, just became engaged Sunday.
Wow, that's great.
So I have an African in the family. Now I have a Dominican in the family, so it was so funny. She went to meet his parents, I think last year, and they said, oh dear, teach Naomi how to do the bachata, like this. And he says, oh, I don't know, I'm pretty rusty too, but maybe we could try, Naomi. You want to try? And she goes, okay, let's try. And so they turned on the bachata music, which even the kids, they'll be dancing to this. And my daughter, she can do the bachata. Her hips were like, whoop, whoop, whoop. It's like they videotaped it, and her family was screaming. They just she's a gringo, she speaks fluent Spanish too. They didn't know. But anyway, so she does all the Latin dances and everything. So it's fun. It's just fun, So the family has just been nailing him, like, when are you going to ask this girl? So it was very romantic what he did. He brought a cameraman too. So it's, to have those real life stories in your family, because I have no control over these things. That's why, we need to be educating our children right as they pop out of the womb, basically, like through love, and what is it that you really want for your life. So then finally, there's the physical based on that, and you've made that lifelong commitment. Otherwise, how do you know that somebody's committed? That's further down the script. But so you could become a parent, but do people who have a baby who aren't married, do they usually stay together or usually fall apart? They almost never stay together. Like when I teach at Integrity House, this guy was complaining, I got to go speak to the judge. I'm going broke because he's finally making a lot of money because he's sober. 5 children by 3 different women. And the guy was 23 years old, just crazy. So you talk about the physical side of sexuality. But when it's based on all those other elements that you really want to share your life with, why would you settle for a 1 or 2 dimensional relationship when you can have a complete 5-dimensional? That's what keeps people together. So then 28, most of us would like to find somebody to give our love to share our lives with, but there's a lot of confusion about what it means to love somebody. Is love just feelings? And I get some answers from them. And I says, really, love is an action verb. It's how we treat one another. So number 29, the next one. This is the slide I get the most comments on in the reviews, which really surprised me. I don't spend a lot of time on it. I give little examples because they don't know what the word conditional, self-centered, changeable, they don't know what that is. So just short, brief descriptions, examples, I should say, and unethical. That's the one when I do the girl who wants to be with the older boy, and she's crying and calling her mother the devil, and then he takes her to the park. Oh, the boys get so upset. How about he says, he picks up your daughter, puts her in the car. He takes your daughter on his hoopty to the park. He puts his arm around your daughter. Then he gives her a few besitos. Hey, yo quiero mucho. How do you feel, man? Oh, they get so angry. Well, you need to think, guys, every young lady is some other man's daughter. Every young lady is some other man's daughter. So you need to think, do I want somebody doing this to my daughter? So lying and sneaking around isn't good. So going through the difference between immature love and mature love, I usually go down the columns rather than back and forth. And then the ethical, I like that phrase, how I care about you, let's not do something we both might regret, for the ethical love. I like that, even though it's from another slide. Then number 30.
Okay, so that's the end of lesson number 7.
Yeah.
This is
Yes,
lesson
lesson
number
7.
7. We're just finishing up.
Yes, 29, yes.
Okay.
So lesson, and if you have time, review the homework and everything, but that can always be done another way. So then it's nice with the homework, like even asking the next time you meet, who actually did the homework? Could you read me something? It'll kind of stimulate their brain. I don't get too hard on them with the homework. Okay, all of you need to finish this. I bring extra copies because they lose them if it's a printout, right? And I says, it must be done, or this is what the teacher said,
Right. So everybody, please bring a copy of this instruction log and then write down how far you got on the piece of paper, okay?
As you do it.
As you do it. Now, don't try to just remember like 2 weeks after you finish everything. That's not really what I want you to do, okay? So at the end of each class, write down how far you got, okay? And then
And if you compare this year's to last year, like say for instance, part 6, we're asking you to do 1 through 14. Last year you were doing 13 to 23. You should have already been on 13 by lesson 6. So it is giving you a little more time, but you do have to gauge it. And when you put that you did exactly what we're asking each time with every single class you do this year, to me it rings a bell. You're just making this up. That's what it says to me, because every class I do, even in the same school, it's different. I have a few slides different. So, and we need your feedback too, because I can help you with some things, organize the time better. It's going to be a challenge for me too, but we really need your in-class discussion. But all these things, especially literature, must be handed out. And so with number 30, we start getting into the ethics of honesty. And this reminds me of college students. They fool around so much when they're young, and they think, oh, when I get older, I'll settle down. You've already programmed your behavior and your brain. You brain trained yourself to cheat, lie, sneak around. And I talk about parents too. I says, if you have to lie and sneak around to get to do something, you know, do you have the right to throw away your mother's goals and dreams? And I have asked students, how many of you, if you were to come home and say, guess what, Mom, I'm a parent. That means if you're a boy or girl, right? I'm a parent. How many of you, your parents, would say, oh, yay, I'm so happy. And they say, no, she'll kill me. Well, do you have the right to throw away your mother's goals and dreams? You know, so they can't think of themselves. At least they can think of their mother.
Right.
And then the next one is, so it's important to ask these questions, especially if you're not even willing to ask yourself these questions. Just don't say you love somebody, because somebody, you know, when I used to hear the word I love you, to me it meant as a teenager, I heard the invisible word forever. I love you means I love you forever. It's not just I love pizza pie, I love cake, I love you.
Right.
So 31, the next one, here's an important question to think about. That's a great setup. Can you love somebody if they don't care about your future? That's a great question to ask them. Get an answer. Can
someone?
Yeah, can somebody love you if they don't care about your future?
Right.
Can somebody love you if they don't even care about their own future? You know, YOLO, YOLO, you only live once, you know, that's what they used to like to say. You know, really shows an immaturity, and maybe, you know, they haven't grown up yet. You know, they say they love you. They have strong emotional feelings. Those are real feelings. But is that what you want? Just like passion in the moment, and you can't trust what they're doing when they're not around? You know, that's why sometimes it's like holding wild horses. Inside even, I want to be with this person the rest of my life. Just those are a lot of brain hormones going off in your brain. Do we make healthy choices when our brain is high on drugs? No.
Right.
But pace yourself. Don't, you know, let everything out. Spend time with your friends. Get to know somebody from a distance, not just always being together, you know, from the very beginning. If you're afraid, well, if I don't spend a lot of time, I'm going to lose them. Does that sound like a healthy relationship?
Right.
You know, so the next one is 32. Now, I don't know if I would say, like in the script, it says, does your boyfriend really love you? Because I think guys get hurt too, you know, like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, anyway,
Does this person really love you?
I would change that. Does this person really love you? Because
Yeah.
there are girl players, right?
There's girl players, absolutely. And then we always, whether we like it or not, you have to take everybody into consideration, you know? And this way, no matter what's going on, they can translate it into their own brain, that relationship. So what we want to do is everybody should be delaying sexual activity if they want to have healthy, mature relationships in the future, at least have a better than average chance at it, you know? So to make sure, take the love test. So we have the love test place. We have that piece of paper that I made. Oh, there it is. That's this one. Do they really love you? And so just tell them no sex is going to happen, and see if the relationship continues. If it does, you've learned that sex does not have to be an important, because even yourself, you don't know. You might be afraid, but just think, if this person is so weak that they can be afraid, they can be scared off from loving me because I asked this question that really is an important thing from a physical, psychological, emotional point of view, you know, see if the at least then, you know, maybe this relationship is worth my investment. It doesn't mean it's a sure thing, but at least it's worth your investment. If they say, well, look, forget you, you know, are you gay? I said, gay people are having a lot of sex. So,
yeah. So I just want to add here, we're just to be very clear, we're asking them to write a letter. Okay, this is an activity, and the purpose is, you know, in the last evaluation, I think you'll remember that we didn't have that much impact on the efficacy to refute, to say no, basically. So that's why I developed this activity. We're asking them to write a letter to someone that they care about, that they're dating, either real or imagined, and saying, look, I like you, I want to have fun together with you, but we're not going to have sex.
Mhm.
Okay, so write this letter, and we're asking them to write the letter right now in class, or if you don't have time to do it at home. This is to increase their confidence that that they can say no, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
They can find out a lot about this person. People always say, adults will say, if only I knew. Well, guess what? You want to know about somebody? This is great. Write this letter to them, and you're just looking for their response. And if they really care about you, that's what, they would do. And another thing with Umi, I asked Bill, and I found out that Umi was still a virgin. She really loved him. I took him out to lunch, and he was sweating. And I said, Bill, well, I understand my daughter's still a virgin. He says, yeah. I says, well, apparently that's a big deal for her to wait until marriage. How do you feel about that? He says, I think it's great. And I says, really? Why? And he said, because we really talk a lot. We talk a lot. We talk for hours. We go and park and we talk and talk. And usually guys don't talk a lot, So he really felt heard. And again, he was not a virgin, by any stretch of the imagination. And I thought that was interesting. I see their bond because usually there's this, ebb and tide, but they problem solve together, and the relationship is what's really important to them.
Yeah, and I think he realized that this girl is different from the other girls that I've been with, right? She has a standard, and I better treat her right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
especially with females, because they're very needy and they want to be loved. I says, he may want to do you, he just doesn't want to marry you.
Right.
He wants to do you, he doesn't really want to marry you. And some of them already understand what I'm talking about. So, and it doesn't mean that person is the bad guy. We always think, oh, he's the bad guy, but we made it confusing for them,
Linda, how much time would you allot for this exercise? I feel like we're teaching online, and
I'm probably doing that as homework.
Probably doing this homework.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and
okay, so you're not going to attempt to all right, we're all going to take 10 minutes and write this letter online. It's a little bit more awkward online too.
Yeah. So this would be homework. And then when you meet again, you can ask for volunteers, 2 or 3 volunteers to read what they, what they wrote. Or if they sent it in, then, you could read it for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to tell them that we will be reading them in front of the class, so be sure to have it done. And it would be homework because the way I'm getting this virtual classroom, it's going to be very different. And then I can also ask the teacher, can you please send them an email 2 days before my next lesson? I usually only speak to them once or twice a week. Please, could you send them an email? Because it's very common for the teachers to send emails.
But by the way, I think with Google Classroom and other programs like it, there's a way for the student to submit their homework, so the teacher actually receives the homework. Then,
she does.
And then the teacher can share what has been submitted with you, and then you could actually read, if they're too shy to read it, you can read 2 or 3 letters.
Yeah, I even say it's anonymous. Even if I take it from the student in front of them, I said, this is anonymous. They always laugh. But so a lot of the things we're discussing today are our in-house discussion. It's not necessarily, and I tell you things that I do in the classroom with this because I've done the high schools a lot in the last few years. but it doesn't mean you would do all these things. So, you know, most of these, we don't have a lot of time to really do a whole in-depth. I know each of us could do a whole lesson just on each slide, but that's why it's going to take some practice, seeing what works and what doesn't work. You have to gauge each lesson and then look ahead what you're going to do, because the things that are just a trigger, we just really want to, you know, hit them, and that's it. And then the ones that need more in depth, which I would refer to the surveys personally, you know, is this something I need them to really, with the efficacy, I just want to mention, Richard, I kind of feel from the students is when they say, and this can also be a part, you know, we need to hit home harder, but what if I don't make it? You know, so I tell them, well, how many of you are going to go to college? All the hands go up. Well, do you think, well, I don't know if I should even try to go to college. What if I don't make it? No, you're going to try anyway. If you want to be professional sports, aren't you going to like give everything your all into that goal?
Right.
You aren't going to make it, but you don't let that stop you.
Right.
You- So I think that has to be kind of more kind of discussed, because I feel like because they have doubt, well, what if this happened? So somehow there's something I'm not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about this. Okay. So I think that's a good point that Linda's making. You know, we're not saying that we have a guarantee that if you do what we say, you're guaranteed to have perfect bliss in your marriage. We're not saying that, but we are saying we're increasing the likelihood that you will have a good relationship. Okay.
And
you're
better
gonna have-
choices.
yeah, and you're gonna have challenges,
Mhm.
but at least you're not gonna bring a lot of baggage into
Right.
your, you know, when you are ready to settle down with somebody.
Yeah. And then you can understand your choices. You can understand the consequences. You're not just going blindly and doing things based on your feelings, you know? So yeah, it's good. You know, again, adults don't even understand this, Richard. You know, so when the adults hear this, it like really hits home with them.
Right. You know, Linda, I really like to quote Linda. She says, a smart person learns from their mistakes, but a really smart person learns from other people's mistakes.
The mistakes of others. Yeah,
Let them do the mistakes. And
that's right. Yeah, you can learn from your mistakes, because seventh graders will always say that. And I says, but the wise person learn from the mistakes of other people. No argument. Yeah. So the act of love or sexual intercourse, what does it mean anyway? And so apparently when the woman has sexual intercourse, a hormone called oxytocin is released. And it's the same hormone that's released when the woman gives birth or nurses her baby. And it gives the mother a feeling of love and concern. It's a bonding type of hormone. That's how I understand bonding. And so it's not just, because people think of breastfeeding as like sexual. It's not at all. It's a bonding
right.
experience. And so with the man, he has, you know, vasopressin. Does that make a man feel more bonding, or just a pleasant feeling in the moment?
No, you feel affection for, yeah, it creates a feeling of bonding also,
Mm-hmm.
you know, unless, you know, look, this is, if someone has become a player and as, you know, and developed like a habit for, I call it dopamine sex, right?
Dopamine sex,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, then they're not bonding with anybody, okay? But we're talking about a person who hasn't gotten into that type of, you know,
I
that's
see.
almost like an addiction, right? So this is
Yes.
something, yeah. I think originally men have this as well. Yes, bonding.
Just really briefly, this is what I've had two high school seniors say to me. They said, Miss Linda, that's so true. Sometimes I'm thinking about that person day and night, but we kick it. Once we have sex, it's one and done. I'm ready to move to the next one.
Right.
What fascinating, exciting about the relationship was that they were not having sex.
Right.
Once they had sex, it satisfied their curiosity. And again, that person is a person that's into dopamine sex.
Right.
So it's that's why if they can avoid these things as young people,
Right.
brain is going to relate very differently, and they're less likely to get those scars to carry with them in life.
So, you know, we do show, I do like to show the example of, like some people have like two hearts, you know, or you have like that coming together, and then they're bonding, right? And then one person just leaves. You know, one person is really bonding. The other person, it really, they don't care really, and then but you're attached to that person, and then you're ripping part of their heart out. Okay, it's like creating a scar, and you know, and then you know, and then that person has pain and feels used and betrayed, and then that person is much less likely to be trusting in a new relationship. So I do recommend you do that example. Yeah.
What I did is I actually cut out hearts, either with
Right.
red paper, pink paper, whatever, just to make it interesting. I'd say, this guy, he went on this stage and says, I gave this piece of my heart to LaTanya, this piece of my heart to Mary, this piece of my heart to Shauna. This one, I can't remember her name, but she sure was good. And then this one, this one. But then when I found the woman of my dreams, the person I want to marry, I just had this little piece of my heart to give. And remember, you go like this, I go like that. The other one I love is the duct tape one. You know, what happens when you put duct tape here and then you rip it off? Ah, man, that hurts. Do it again. Ah, that hurts. But then after like the fourth or fifth time, there's no more adhesive. I can do this all day. You know, I don't feel a thing. And that's what happens too, is you just don't feel anything after a while. So it's,
You know, one note on this topic is I think I got that certification. I think it was 3 years ago. I forget the name of the organization. Is it Ascent? That does the
Ascent,
certifications, right?
Mhm.
And at that workshop, you had your pro abstinence and I forget the terms at the moment, but the people who are very
sexual risk
strong,
avoidance.
yes, SRA, SRR, right? And then and the SRA people were refuting that, saying, well, this example has often been misrepresented as though you can no longer bond with oxytocin with people. You certainly can, right? And they were just saying that example, like the tape, everybody does that, duct tape. The LifeNet people do that. Other people I've met do that.
Mm.
But they were kind of refuting it, saying that's not really accurate to do that example.
All right, look, obviously each individual may react somewhat differently, but look, all of this is an analogy, okay?
Mhm.
So it doesn't mean it's relevant for every single person in the classroom, but I believe that it has I would say at least half of the kids in the class will be able to relate to this.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily agree that this is, because we're making the case that the act of love means something. That's the whole point of why we're talking about this. So if you're a nihilist or materialist, then you say, no, it doesn't mean anything. You know, the animal world, they just
We're all animals, right?
just screw each other and move on. So, but we are saying, our program is saying the act of love does mean something. And that's why people do have a feeling of being bonded to, unless they misuse the act of love, you know, but
Yes.
most teenagers, their natural inclination is to feel it does mean something. And that's what we're saying here.
And in the future, it would. In the moment, we're not ready. I don't relate it to anything hormonal at all. It's all about the emotional pain. When I give my heart to Gideon, and then he breaks up with me or cheats. Wow, that really hurt. And then so I run into Joe. I give my heart to Joe. He leaves me. That really hurts. But then the third one, yeah, it kind of hurt, but oh well, I was expecting it. After a while, I'm just with this person, it doesn't matter. I don't feel a thing. So that's how I relate it, not to oxytocin and all that. Yes,
Yeah.
Gideon.
But I think it is valuable to mention the oxytocin and the vasopressin because it's describing real hormones that are they are bonding hormones and they do exist. But
Mhm.
Gideon, you want to say something?
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say from my raw experience in college, being around guys and talking about their sexual experiences and so forth. Again, they say things without really knowing the depth of what they're saying, but it's common where after they have sex with a girl, they immediately have the girl leave the room or at least drive her home, but they never let the girl sleep with them. And the reason why is they say it develops emotional strings attachment. A lot of guys recognize that. So again, they don't know the science, they don't know, the depths of it, but they just see that as an observation. So that's a common thing with the guys saying they know that there's a bonding that does happen. And what's funny with the guys who are ignorant of that fact, probably had sex for the first time and don't really know any better. I remember like asking this one gentleman, this one guy, I was like, so how are you guys, boyfriend, girlfriend? And he's like, we had sex. She slept in my bed. And now I just feel emotionally attached to her. Like, I don't know how to get off of the situation, but I just kind of feel stuck with her.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was my personal experience of just
Right.
talking to guys, again,
Right.
the raw experience in college.
Yeah.
So I mean, look at the culture that they have their natural inclination, and then there's the cynical culture, the tough guy culture. Okay, I don't really give a damn about this girl. I'm not going to get attached to her. It's kind of macho culture. That's really going to help them to be successful in a marital relationship, right?
Yeah, they think the ring and the magic with fairy water from the priest, like now it'll be fine. And you see it just like the living together and everything. So it's that's fascinating, Gideon. And because they know this, so they want to stay away. Because now what I'm hearing, like over the last few years, the women, this is usually, out of school, but after she has sex, she kicks the guy out. He says, aren't I going to spend the night like morning sex? She goes, no, please go home. Like I'm done, basically, like a black widow spider. Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it can go both ways. In other words.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think because now the females are almost like I don't want to say as promiscuous as males, but more sex driven, kind of thing. It's kind of different. Women usually have sex because of their emotions and feelings, and guys could feelings too, but it's usually feelings someplace else. That's my joke. But yeah. So girls are becoming predators, and the guys are painful, sad.
Okay.
So then the next one, and I really like that dopamine sex example. That's great. So 34, the next one. If you're not really ready to commit yourself to a person totally, should you be acting like you are? People think that like bringing flowers, being nice, all of these things, it's going to be that way the rest of your life. No, this is just a temporary thing. So aren't you kind of taking something that doesn't really belong to you? It belongs to their future partner. How do you know if somebody's committed? And then, so unless somebody's willing to publicly tell your family, your friends, and the whole community that they want to share their life together, well, how do they do this? Next slide would be the institution of marriage has existed throughout the world and throughout history and in so many different cultures. Just trying to look. Okay, that's an 8. And so we each picture I show what they are. Now the only trouble with the Egyptians, I think they're brother and sister, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But and I think the Nigerians and the Indians.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, the Egyptian royalty practiced incest. I'm sorry to say so, but
We skip over that because they usually don't know. But and the Indians, oh my gosh, they celebrate for like a whole week. They rent these whole stadiums, and all the family comes. It's just like, it's definitely, you have to have everybody's permission. Even in my family, before we get married or whatever, we ask the rest of the family how they feel about that, you know? And even Lewis, before he asked my daughter, he asked me, you know? So it helped me move some of my stuff into storage that day. But, you know, I kind of knew it was coming. So it's a nice tradition so that you can, you see what you're getting yourself into. So I do explain what each of them are, and look how happy they've really involved the family. And so when they have a baby, it's such a joyous experience. Because I know in the hood right now, it used to be the girls had a baby and they thought, oh, we get parties. I mean, you should see the invitations. They're like, you think you'd go into a celebrity ball or something. And they're getting all of these gifts and attention, but then they get so depressed months after the baby's born, because before they would bring the baby to school, because of course they're on leave, and they would hold the baby. Oh, it's so nice, your baby. Here's $5, whatever. But now all the schools, I saw the same thing. They say, you're my student. I really love you. The baby, that's your baby. So they don't hold the baby. They don't make any mention of the baby. It's a very different experience. So, so we want it to be a joyful experience that, you know, everybody can share with us. And then the next one is about fences and boundaries. Now the script is different than the pictures, so that's something that needs to be updated as well. But why do we have fences and boundaries? You know, how many of you, you know, lock your doors at night and shut your windows? Well, why do you do that? Would you, with horses, if you have these, you know, $10,000 horses, would you just let them, you know, run free in everybody's yard? Or why would you build a fence? It's to protect something valuable and important, you know. And same with mailboxes. They even changed it, so there's no way you can get into them. And the skin as a boundary, how important skin is, and things like this. So everything that's valuable and everything that's healthy, it has a boundary. And so we get into a lot, but you know, we're always asking. I don't know how online you can ask this, because even a school today, I sent it to you, Richard, they were saying you might have to send a pre-recording. So we could ask a question rhetorically.
Yeah, rhetorical questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So then the next one, 8 is to 41. Okay, so everything valuable and healthy has a boundary, but we don't want it to be totally separate either. We want to find somebody we can know and trust. So there's two extremes. The person who has a wall so high and strong, nobody can get in. They're afraid of all relationships. And you could even ask why, you know, probably because they had so many that didn't work. And then, or you have the person who has no boundaries and they let almost anybody come in and take whatever they want. And then they wonder why they feel lonely and depressed. Healthy relationships have boundaries. And we talk about, well, what are some steps, if you like somebody a lot, what are some steps you might do to share yourself with somebody? You know, so then we give them, you know, ideas, paying attention, listening to them, communicating, you know, emails, instant message. And even they have to be careful with that, because that can create false emotional feelings that somebody's not capable of fulfilling for you. But, you know, talking on the cell phone, giving gifts, small acts of kindness, touch, which means holding hands, simple kiss. And then the last one, touch, actually leading to sexual arousal. That's why it's important to have those boundaries. And then sexual intercourse. Now, when you have sexual intercourse, did you know actually you're sharing the most, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
You're sharing one of the most important parts of you. What do you think that is? And they'll usually say heart, you know, or something like that. But actually, you're sharing your DNA. You know, you're sharing your DNA. You're creating a whole potential, creating a whole human being, you know, from the two of you. It's a new family, but you're sharing your DNA with somebody. So research shows that those who go quickly to advanced sexual intimacy have a weaker bonding with the other person. And the problem with having sexual activity as a young person, you go even quicker. You tend to pick up with the new person what you left off with the old person. So there's actually no foundation at all of getting to know that person or building a real relationship. It's just totally immediate. And it may be great for a couple of weeks, you know, but it's just a fantasy. It's again, the dopamine sex, you know, so did you want to add something, Richard?
Yeah, I just want you see the bullet point where it says sexual intimacy and it says love ? So we're asking them, well, what if you think you're in love with somebody, does that mean it's okay to be sexually intimate, right? So I want you to ask that question. Ask them, does that mean if you think you love somebody, does that mean it's okay to be, to go all the way, and ask them that question.
Mhm.
And of course, hopefully they'll realize that the answer is no. It doesn't
Right.
mean, because to have love, to have sex with someone who is not a mature adult, that's not a loving thing. Actually, it's harmful to them.
You look at the inner city with the poverty, but 85% of the kids have a single female head of household. They've never
Yeah.
had a father in their house,
Right.
At least for any length of time. It just leads to bad outcomes for our children. They just think it's, again, their childlike mind, even as an adult, is thinking just the moment. What you had just shared with us is in the script. I would suggest highlighting it or underlining it to remember
Right.
to ask.
I would add something to that. I think that when the relationship is going a little bit deeper and deeper in the physical intimacy, they're touching more private areas. It's more. I think it starts to emerge in a lot of kids' minds that you start to ask the question more, like, how much does this person really care about me? It's interesting because the more you let them in, the more you question how much do they really. If it's just a kiss, you're not thinking they love me or not. If it's hand holding, you're not thinking that. But when you start letting them do very intimate things, then you start, wow, how much do they really care about me? So that intimacy raises that question of love for a lot of people
Right.
naturally.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Even the act of sex is changing. I remember, I think it was even 8 years ago, because, in part 5, I think it was when we said the levels of intimacy, I would have the kids actually write down. They said it was very typical, and the females confirmed it. Used to be, you would kiss and make out, kiss around the neck. And if that's okay, then the hands touch through the clothes on the breast, and then underneath the clothes on the breast. And then you would touch through the clothes between the legs. There was always a guidepost, right? Now they say they go straight to between the legs right away and home run. It's like, and then, so of course that's weaker bonding too. It's just for immediate gratification. So it's interesting. It's interesting. So it's like, it doesn't mean anything. They don't see it as something that ideally two people share for a lifetime. Or we might as well get, we really love each other. Let's just have sex. And I've known people like that, young people who were saving their virginity till marriage. They met a person, they really loved them. They said, well, we're going to get married anyway. They had sex and everything fell apart. Even if they got married, it didn't last. Not one of them lasts. So it's kind of interesting. So we talk about the DNA, and the next one is 38.
And then what about these the rings, right? That you're asking what
Yes.
do the rings represent?
Yes, so the rings, I forget about that part. The true love weight rings?
Yeah, I mean, just the idea of,
Yeah.
these are wedding rings, okay? I mean, that's what they symbolize, the wedding rings. So
Okay.
we're saying, why do people, when they get married, why do they give each other a ring on the finger? What does that represent?
Usually means eternity. I mean, forever.
Yeah,
Circle.
yeah, exactly. The circle represents an eternal commitment. Okay, so that's what the symbolism means. Something that has absolute value needs an absolute protection.
Mhm.
That's why you
Yeah.
give a ring when you get married to somebody, because you're saying that I am eternally committed to you. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of a warning sign too. Somebody wants to hit on somebody, they see the ring, they go, okay. If they're a good person, they do that. Now, my friend was a DJ. I forget what his name was, but really nice guy. He's a DJ, worked with us for a little while. And like, he's 35 years old, and he says, Miss Linda, I'll be doing my thing, you know, as a DJ, and these young girls come hitting on me, and they would say, are you married? And he'd say, oh, my lucky day. No, I'm not. I'm single. And the girls would just walk away from him. They wanted a married guy to cheat with, to get gifts and presents and stuff like that. We have a messed up world, Richard. I'm going to straighten this out. But we have to straighten them out at a young age.
Yeah.
Because after the patterns of behavior, it's like drug addiction. They just keep doing it. So number 38, 41 will be our last one for this section. But just what do a man and woman promise when they get married? What does it mean? Have any of you heard wedding vows? Well, it's really a promise of permanence, that no matter what hot-looking guy or girl goes walking by, my love is all for you, nobody else. Sexual financial union with my body, I worship you. All that I have, I give to you, and all that I am, I give to you, and all that I have, I share with you. Exclusive fidelity. Is this forsake all others? I used to think that meant all your exes, your boyfriends and girlfriends, that you forsake them, you walk away from them. But it means anybody who's not friendly to the marriage, you forsake them.
Right.
You don't hang out with them. If they're not supporting your marriage and your vow, you just don't have much to do. So it's really something to think about. Take care of and love our children together, not on different days and play dates and things like this, but through the tough times and the good times. And it's a public promise. Used to be back in the day, your word was your bond. I remember growing up, even men would say, but we shook hands on this. Like, they couldn't even believe, like, they shook hands on a deal. We didn't have contracts, you know. You shook hands, that's all you got to do. You're going to sell your car, you're going to do something, shake your hands, that's it, you know. And it's a public promise that you made in front of all your family and friends. That's why you invite all your family and friends, because you're making a public promise, because they're supposed to support your union. Hey, you know, like my father would go to the bar and have a drink with the boys, right? And if a guy got too drunk, and some girl would go up to him and say, hey, Joe, what do you know? My dad or one of the guys would say, come on, Joe, we got to take you home now, you know, because they're there to support his marriage, you know.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. So I don't spend a lot of time on it, but just that they really understand, because too often now we put more money, more thought, more preparation into a 20-minute wedding ceremony than we do the lifelong commitment. So we really have to understand the ceremony is supposed to represent a lifelong commitment. Men used to faint at the altar because it was such a big deal. You know, like, really quick, I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm sending to my future son-in-law, Louis, who just proposed to Naomi. I'm sending him a personal congratulation card. This is like, you know, on the circus where you hit the hammer and then the thing goes up. It says, step right up, you know, like step up. And then here for the gong thing, it says, test your strength. And then you open it up and it says, it's time to discover the hidden strength you never knew you had until now. You can do this. Because he took so long. But, you know, so hopefully my daughter will understand the joke. But, yeah, you know, really, you know, it helps a man really feel wanted, and like his life makes a difference, you know, or he's just running around, you know, and you know, doing his thing, you know. But when he has children who are depending, they're looking at daddy for an example, really gives them a reason to work even harder, get those raises, things like that. So basically that's it. So number 39, next one, because I don't know about you guys, but how I was raised was not like what we teach. So I had to really get into this, because I have to believe what I'm saying to other people. I practice what I'm saying to other people. You know, I don't have a secret life. I'm very good at lying and sneaking around. I don't lie and sneak around, you know. And I tell the kids, because, you know, nobody would know. I have my own P.O. box, my own credit cards, everything else. I have my own car, my own schedule. Nobody would know, but but somebody would know. Who would know? And they said, you would know. And I said, yeah.
Right.
So 39, many youth and young adults do have expressed strong pro-marriage attitudes. This shocks everybody. I know it was a few years ago, but I'll bet you the thing is the same. They agreed that getting married, ages 13 to 24 in the poll, getting married would make you happy, 91%. 52% said they definitely wanted to get married. 40% said they probably wanted to get married. 64% said very likely. And I'm thinking, if people follow what we're teaching, do you think they're going to have a better chance of doing this or less? And most of them say yes, better. So, and that they would remain married to the same person for life. 30% said it was somewhat likely.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you need to read all those.
Yeah.
I realized I left it in there just
Yeah.
so you know.
If people
but,
wanted to know. Yeah, I don't either.
yeah,
I just said 91%.
yeah,
And then the ages, because I think they need to know the ages. They always think old people think like this, you know?
right.
And that's, I think, the end of, no, 41 is the last one. So then the next one, there's clear links between saving sex and marital success. Again, they need to see what's in it for me, what's the reward. And couples who are not sexually active before marriage have higher levels of romance, more likely to be faithful in marriage, and lower risk of divorce. Now, I don't necessarily always go into this unless I'm speaking to adults, but back in the day, you would see them fall in love, get married, and have kids and everything, lived happily ever after. Well, most people, that is what happened. The divorce rate was very low until the 60s. But now, because of all the other activities that go on, people need to really think about
Right.
decisions they're making. So this is because people say marriage is just a piece of paper. Well, yeah, if you're just having sex with random people, it kind of is, you know, but it's what quality, you know, life do you really want? You know, I can't tell you how many men, they've been married 3 times by the age of 35, and they all say the same thing. I should have stuck with the first one. They realized the problem was themselves, not the person they're married to. Lower risk of divorce. And I'll ask them why. And it's because they use self-control. You know, they actually cared about the person inside of the body, you know, and that marriage meant something to them. So they were very careful who they chose.
Right.
As somebody who had the same belief system that they did. And some people are afraid to ask people about, what do you think about family, having children? What do you think about divorce, cheating, things like this, until it happens, you know? So, you know, the ones that are willing to wait, they place a higher value on marriage and stronger commitment to it. Then 41 is the last slide for lesson 8. And this, I love this one. Who is having the best sex? Swinging signals, living together, married with affairs. You know, like, I can't even remember his name now, but he had a song called The Entree's a Little Better with Something on the Side. That's Married with Affairs. And then he made another, and he's hip hop, right? And then he made another one, not Love You Better, but another one where he talked about marriage in a very serious way and still did it with the hip hop genre. So that was kind of cool. But, and then I'll tell you, at least 85% of the hands go up for married and faithful. At least every single time. And I'm definitely, it's not because, oh, Miss Linda's here and stuff. It has nothing to do with that. They really feel it's married and faithful. Once in a while, swinging singles, but it's because they're not really processing things, right? And it's true. Some people will say, well, how do you get to know somebody unless you live with them first, you know? So it's just helping them understand that, again, this is why people make these, I can call them mistakes, because they didn't understand, oh yeah, we love each other. We should just live with each other and have sex and, you know, get married if that ever happens. So, so we just discussed very, talk.
Yeah, regarding the living together, people think it's practice for marriage, but actually it's not. It's actually practice. It's practice for divorce.
Yeah.
Because the premise of living together is anytime you and I feel like we don't want to deal with this, we can walk out the door.
Mhm.
So it's that you're actually practicing for the opposite of marriage, right?
And sometimes when they get married, it's not even that they love each other. It's just like, well, we lived together this long. I'm getting pressure from the family. We bought furniture together. I have a teacher in Jersey City, and he says, me and my girlfriend bought a house. I'm like, oh, okay. The next, I think 2 years later, I did that same high school. He says, oh my God, we're broken up and we still have the house because the housing market collapsed. They were stuck in that house together, and she played video games day and night. It's just like they never even talked. They hated each other. And he is such a nice guy, but
Wow.
living proof. So then 41 is the last slide for lesson 8. And then 42.
Okay, actually, it's 6:13, and we've gone about 90 minutes. So I'm
People can
wondering.
figure these out for themselves.
No. What I'm suggesting is that we have one more meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about that for.